I'm holding my son's wallet in my hands, standing in the middle of a forest at 8 in the morning, and 3 search and rescue officers are staring at me like they're waiting for me to collapse. They found it 50 yards off the main trail. Navy blue backpack, half buried in mud and leaves. Jason's driver's license inside, his debit card, $23 cash, and a receipt from a gas station dated January 1st at 2:47 a.m. But no Jason, just his stuff, abandoned, in the woods. Deputy Chen had called me 4 hours ago, 3:47 in the morning, that ringtone that means someone's dead or dying. Ma'am, your son's car was found on Highway 26, engine running, door open, phone and wallet inside. We can't locate him. I'd driven back from the coast in the dark, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the wheel, because 2 days ago, I'd walked out on him, canceled the vacation he couldn't afford without me, turned off my phone, and disappeared to a lighthouse cottage while he sent me 47 texts I ignored. The last one said, "I'm coming to find you. We need to fix this." That was at 2:17 a.m. on New Year's Day. Now it's January the 2nd, and I'm standing here with his wallet, and Sarah from Search and Rescue is saying, "There are tracks leading down the slope." Looks like he went over the edge. The slope drops 30 degrees into fog so thick you can't see the bottom. Trees everywhere. Cliffs. 1,000 places to fall and never be found. How long has he been out here? I ask. Based on the car, at least 15 hours, maybe more. 15 hours in January. Rain. Temperatures in the 30s. If he's hurt, if he can't move, if he's unconscious. We're going down, Sarah says. You should wait here. No, Mrs. Hargrove, if he's down there and I'm going. Because this is my fault. All of it. 3 days ago, my son told me I was too old to party with him and his friends, that I'd ruin the vibe. This was after I'd paid for everything. The cabin at Lake Tahoe, his flight, his girlfriend's lift tickets, 6 months of overtime shifts at the hospital, $3,000 I didn't have. Also, I could spend New Year's with my kid. And he uninvited me. Right there in the pizza place. Casual as anything. Stay home, Mom. We don't want old people at the party. I'd looked at his face. 32 years old. The face I'd loved since the moment he was born. And something in me just broke. So I canceled everything. Told him he could pay for his own trip. Drove to the coast alone. And I felt good about it. Righteous. Finally standing up for myself after years of being walked on. Except now Jason's missing. And the last thing I said to him was essentially go to hell. And I turned off my phone while he was texting me apologies. While he was getting drunk and guilty and desperate enough to drive through a rainstorm at 2 in the morning trying to find me. The police think he stopped to hike, that he pulled over at the Angel's Rest trailhead, got out of the car, and walked into the woods in the middle of the night. Deputy Chen asked me earlier very carefully if Jason had been depressed, if he'd been struggling, if he might have gone up there too. No, I'd said absolutely not. But now I'm not sure of anything. They're clipping me into a rope. Sarah's giving me instructions I'm barely hearing. The other searchers are spreading out, calling Jason's name into the trees. We start down. The slope is worse than it looks. Mud everywhere. Roots trying to trip you. Visibility maybe 10 feet. Sarah's ahead of me calling out, "Jason! Jason Hargrove!" And I'm trying not to think about how many ways this ends badly. My son could be lying at the bottom of this hill with a broken neck. He could have hypothermia. He could have been dead for hours while I was sleeping peacefully in a cottage by the ocean, feeling sorry for myself. We've gone maybe 40 feet when Sarah stops. There, at the base of a massive tree, there's something that doesn't belong to the forest. A person, lying face down, not moving, wearing Jason's jacket. Sarah slides down fast, checks for a pulse, and I can't breathe. I literally cannot pull air into my lungs. Then she looks up at me. He's alive. I don't remember getting down the rest of the slope. I'm just suddenly there, on my knees, in the mud beside my son, and his face is gray, and his lips are blue, and there's blood dried on his forehead, and his leg is bent wrong, and he's so cold. "Jason," I'm saying, or maybe screaming. I can't tell anymore. "Jason, it's Mom. I'm here. You're okay? You're going to be okay." His eyes flutter open for just a second. "Mom?" "I'm here, baby. I'm right here, Ma. I'm sorry." Then he's unconscious again, and Sarah's yelling into her radio for a medical evac, and I'm lying down next to him in the freezing mud trying to share body heat, because that's all I can do. My son almost died apologizing to me. He drove into the mountains in a rainstorm, got out of his car at 2 a.m, hiked up a dangerous trail in the dark, and fell down a cliff trying to fix what we'd broken. And I wasn't answering my phone because I was too busy being right. They're bringing the litter down now. The paramedics. Sarah's asking me questions I'm not processing. Someone's wrapped a thermal blanket around me, but I can't feel it. All I can think is, 3 days ago, I walked out on my son to teach him a lesson, and I almost lost him forever. Now we're waiting for the helicopter, and Jason's still unconscious, and I don't know if he has internal bleeding or brain damage or if he's going to wake up at all. I don't know if the last conversation we'll ever have was him telling me I'm too old to party and me telling him to pay for his own vacation. I don't know if I've spent the last 3 years since my husband died clinging so hard to my son that I turned him into someone who resented me. I don't know anything except that I'm 58 years old and I'm sitting in the mud holding my unconscious son's hand. And I would give anything, to go back to that pizza place and just say yes. Yes, I'll stay home. Yes, you should have fun with your friends. Yes, I understand. Because at least then he'd be safe. At least then he wouldn't be here, broken and bleeding, because I had to prove a point. The helicopter's coming. I can hear it through the rain. They're going to take him to Providence, Portland, the same hospital where I've worked for 15 years. The same ICU where I've watched other mothers sit beside their children's beds praying for miracles. Now I'm going to be that mother. And the only thing I keep thinking is, what if sorry isn't enough? What if we don't get the chance to fix this? What if this is how the story ends, with both of us finally ready to apologize, but only one of us conscious enough to hear it? I should have known something was wrong when Jason texted instead of called. "Mom, can we do dinner tonight? Me and Megan want to talk about Tahoe." It was December 30th, and I was finishing a 12-hour shift at Providence, Portland. My feet ached in a way that suggested I'd be soaking them in Epsom salt later, and my scrub smelled like antiseptic and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from holding the hand of a dying woman while her family argued in the hallway about the will. Mrs. Kowalski had passed at 4:47 p.m. I'd closed her eyes myself, whispered a prayer I wasn't sure I still believed in, and clocked out 20 minutes later because the next shift was already overwhelmed. But Jason wanted to talk about Tahoe, and I hadn't seen him in 3 weeks, so I said yes. Escape from New York Pizza on NW 23rd was his choice. It always was. The place had exposed brick walls covered in framed Sinatra photos and smelled like garlic and yeast and the kind of casual confidence that comes from knowing you're good at what you do. I arrived first. I always arrived first, and slid into a booth near the window where I could watch the rain turn the December streets into black mirrors. Portland in winter is a study in gray. The sky, the pavement, the faces of people hurrying past under umbrellas. Even the Christmas lights strung across the Pearl District looked muted, like they were apologizing for trying too hard. I'd lived here for 34 years, since David got the job at Intel, and we'd packed up our tiny apartment in Sacramento and driven north in a U-Haul with a dying transmission. Jason had been 2 years old then, small enough to sleep in a car seat through the entire 7-hour drive. Now he was 32, late as usual, and I was 58, early as always. I ordered water with lemon and checked my phone. The group chat with the other ICU nurses was blowing up about New Year's schedules. Denise had posted a gif of a champagne bottle exploding. Kara had responded with a crying emoji. I didn't participate. I'd already requested the days off months ago, back in September when I'd first started planning this trip. Lake Tahoe. The phrase alone had felt like a promise. I'd never been. David had always talked about it. The snow, the casinos, the mountain air so clean, it made your lungs hurt in a good way. We'd planned to go for our 25th anniversary, but he'd died 4 months before we could book the flights. Massive coronary in the Costco parking lot, slumped over the cart with a case of La Croix and a rotisserie chicken. Gone before the ambulance arrived. The grief had been a living thing for the first year. Then it became furniture. Something I moved around but never quite removed. Jason had been devastated too. Or so I thought. He'd cried at the funeral, delivered a eulogy about Dad teaching him to ride a bike, helped me sort through the closets. But within 6 months, he'd moved in with Megan, started a new job at a tech startup downtown, and our weekly dinners became bi-weekly, then monthly, then whenever he had time. I told myself that was normal. That's what sons do. They grow up. They leave. But I'd still wanted Tahoe. I'd wanted one trip where it was just us, where we could sit by a fire and talk the way we used to when he was younger, and still thought I was interesting. So I'd booked it. Spent $3,000 I didn't really have. Flights for both of us. A cabin split with his friends Tyler and Aisha. Lift tickets. A dinner reservation at a place called Evans that had a Michelin star and a wait list 3 months long. Jason had seemed excited when I told him. "That's amazing, Mom. Seriously, you're the best." And I'd glowed. God help me. I'd glowed. The door chimed and I looked up. Jason walked in first, shaking rain from his North Face jacket, the one I'd bought him last Christmas. Megan followed, her blonde hair in a sleek ponytail, her yoga pants and oversized sweater the kind of effortless, expensive that came from having parents who still paid her phone bill. She was 28, worked in marketing, and had the sort of confidence I'd never possessed even at her age. "Hey, Mom." Jason slid into the booth across from me, and Megan settled beside him. He smelled like the Tom Ford cologne David used to wear, and it hit me like a fist. "Hi, sweetheart." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. His fingers were cold. "How was work?" "Brutal. Year-end reviews. Everyone's panicking about Q1 projections." He pulled his hand back to pick up the menu, even though we both knew he'd order the same thing he always did. Pepperoni, extra cheese, no oregano. "And you, Megan, how's the campaign going?" She glanced up from her phone. "Good. Yeah. Stressful, but good." The conversation had the texture of small talk between strangers. I hated it. The waiter came, a kid with a man bun and a septum piercing, and took our order. Jason got his usual. Megan ordered a Caesar salad with dressing on the side. I asked for a margarita pizza, and immediately regretted it because I could already feel the acid reflux forming. "So," Jason said, folding his hands on the table in a way that reminded me of David during serious conversations. "We wanted to talk about the Tahoe trip." My stomach tightened. "Okay. Yeah, so Megan and I were talking and we thought..." He glanced at her. She nodded like she was giving him permission to continue. "We thought it might be better if it was just, the younger crowd." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Like just me, Megan, Tyler, and Aisha. People our age." The restaurant suddenly felt very loud. A burst of laughter from the bar. The hiss of a pizza sliding into the oven. The clatter of plates. "I paid for the cabin," I said slowly. "And your flight." "I know. And that's super generous, Mom. Really. But..." He ran a hand through his hair. "It's New Year's Eve. We want to party, stay up late, do the whole thing, and no offense, but having you there would it would change the vibe." "Change the vibe," I repeated. Yeah, like we'd feel like we had to tone it down or whatever. You know what I mean? I did know what he meant. I wasn't stupid. What he meant was, you're old, you're boring, you don't belong. Megan leaned forward, her voice soft and syrupy. Linda, we just think you'd have more fun doing your own thing. Like a spa day or something. Treat yourself. Treat myself. With what money? The money I'd already spent on them. The waiter returned with our drinks. I watched him set down Jason's IPA, Megan's sparkling water, my Diet Coke. Everything felt slow and distant, like I was watching this happen to someone else. So you want me to stay home? I said. Jason shifted uncomfortably. I mean, you could still come to Tahoe. Just maybe get your own room. Do your own thing during the day. We'd totally meet up for dinner or whatever. You want me to pay for a separate room? Well, and spend New Year's Eve alone while you party with your friends. His jaw tightened. Mom, don't make this a thing. I'm not making it a thing, Jason. I'm clarifying. Look, we just thought it'd be better this way. More fun for everyone. More fun for you. Jesus. He sat back, shaking his head. This is exactly why we didn't want to bring it up. Something inside me crystallized. A coldness that started in my chest and spread outward, numbing everything. That's fine, I said. He blinked. What? That's fine. You're right. You should have a trip with people your own age. Relief flooded his face. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, thanks for understanding. I'll cancel my ticket and the cabin reservation. You and your friends can split the cost yourselves. The relief evaporated. Wait, what? You're adults. You can pay for your own vacation. Megan's eyes widened. Jason's face went pale. Mom, come on. We can't afford that. Then I guess you'll have to adjust your plans. Are you serious right now? I took a sip of my Diet Coke. It tasted like nothing. Completely. This is insane. You're punishing us for being honest. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply declining to fund a trip I'm not invited to. You are invited. We just thought that I'd pay for it and stay home like a good little ATM. Megan flinched. Jason's face flushed red. That's not fair. No, I said quietly. It's not. The pizza arrived. None of us touched it. Jason stared at me like I'd grown a second head. So that's it? You're just going to bail? I'm going to do what you suggested, sweetheart. My own thing. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Mom. I stood up, reaching for my purse. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Where are you going? Home. I have packing to do. Packing? For what? I smiled. It felt like putting on someone else's face. Enjoy the pizza. And I walked out into the rain, leaving my son sitting there with his mouth open and his girlfriend's hand on his arm, and the realization slowly dawning that maybe, just maybe, he'd made a terrible mistake. The drive home took 20 minutes. My hands didn't shake until I was inside my apartment, the same 2-bedroom in Goose Hollow I'd lived in since David died. Too big for one person, too full of ghosts. I dropped my keys on the counter and stood in the kitchen staring at the refrigerator covered in photos held up by magnets from places I'd never been. Then I opened my laptop and started searching. Not for Lake Tahoe, for somewhere else, somewhere small, somewhere quiet, somewhere I could disappear. I found it at 11:47 p.m., a lighthouse keeper's cottage in Cannon Beach, available December 31st through January 3rd. $180 a night. Ocean views. Walking distance to town. The photos showed whitewashed walls, a fireplace, a small kitchen, and a window that looked out at miles of gray water. I booked it without thinking twice. Then I canceled the Tahoe cabin. Got a partial refund. $1,800 minus fees. Canceled Jason's flight. Got nothing back because it was less than 24 hours out. That stung, but not as much as the look on his face at dinner. At 12:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. Jason. Mom, can we talk about this? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone, climbed into bed, and slept better than I had in years. The next morning, December 31st, I loaded my car, a 2014 Honda CR-V with a dent in the passenger door and 140,000 miles, with a weekend bag, a thermos of coffee, and the photo album from my wedding that I hadn't opened since the funeral. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray, still heavy with the promise of more. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, engine running, heat blasting, and looked up at the apartment building. Somewhere in this city, Jason was waking up, realizing the trip was canceled, panicking. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I pulled out of the parking lot and pointed the car west, toward the coast, toward the lighthouse, toward whatever came next. And for the first time in 3 years, maybe longer, I was doing something just for me. The highway stretched out ahead, wet and black and endless. I drove. The drive to Cannon Beach took 2 hours and 17 minutes, and I spent most of it convinced I'd made a horrible mistake. Highway 26 wound through the Coast Range like a ribbon, dropped carelessly across mountains, all switchbacks and sudden drops and signs warning about elk crossings. The rain started again around mile 40, turning the windshield into a watercolor painting. My wipers needed replacing. They left streaks that caught the light in ways that made me squint, but I hadn't gotten around to it. There were a lot of things I hadn't gotten around to. I'd left Portland at 6:47 a.m., before the sun was fully up, before my phone could start buzzing with messages I wasn't ready to read. I'd turned it off the night before and left it that way, buried in my purse like something dangerous. The silence felt strange. For 3 years I'd kept my phone on full volume, even at night, because what if Jason needed me? What if there was an emergency? What if? Now the what-ifs could wait. The coffee in my thermos had gone lukewarm by the time I passed through the town of Elsie. Population 134, nothing but a gas station and a tavern and a church with a white steeple that looked too clean for the gray sky. I thought about stopping, stretching my legs, maybe using the restroom, but I kept driving. I had this feeling that if I stopped, I might turn around, that the weight of what I'd done, walking out on my son, canceling the trip, spending money I didn't have on a spontaneous escape, would catch up with me, and I'd lose my nerve. So I drove. The mountains gave way to smaller hills, then flatlands. Then suddenly the smell changed. Salt, seaweed, something older than pavement. The Pacific was close. I'd been to Cannon Beach exactly once before, 28 years ago, when Jason was 4. David had insisted on a weekend trip because he'd read about Haystack Rock in some travel magazine and wanted to see it in person. We'd stayed at a cheap motel with floral bedspreads and a TV that only got 3 channels. Jason had cried the entire first night because the sound of the waves scared him. I'd spent most of the trip in the motel room, reading him picture books, while David walked the beach alone, coming back smelling like beer and disappointment. We'd never gone back. Now here I was, alone, 58 years old, driving toward that same ocean for reasons I couldn't fully articulate even to myself. The GPS told me to turn left onto Hemlock Street. The town appeared gradually. No dramatic entrance, just buildings emerging from the mist like they'd been there forever and were too tired to make a fuss about it. Art galleries, coffee shops, a candy store with taffy displays in the window. Off-season meant most places were closed or running on skeleton crews. I passed maybe 5 other cars. The Lighthouse Cottage was on the north end of town, down a gravel driveway that my CR-V handled like it was personally offended. The building was exactly like the photos. Whitewashed stone, red roof, a small porch with a rocking chair that looked handmade. The lighthouse itself wasn't functional anymore. I'd read that in the listing. But it stood 30 feet tall, behind the cottage like a protective parent. I parked and sat there for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, staring at this place I had chosen on impulse. What was I doing? I'd left my son in crisis, canceled a trip he'd been looking forward to, spent money I should have saved. And for what? To sit in a cottage and stare at the ocean? To prove a point? To punish him? No. To remember who I was before I became someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's nurse. To remember Linda. I grabbed my bag and the photo album and walked to the front door. The lockbox code worked on the second try. My fingers were cold and clumsy, and the door swung open into a space that smelled like wood smoke and lemon cleaner. Inside was simple but perfect. Hardwood floors, a braided rug, a fireplace with logs already stacked beside it. The kitchen was small, just a 2-burner stove, a mini fridge, a sink with a window that looked out at the lighthouse. The bedroom had a queen bed with a white quilt and more pillows than any human needed. The bathroom had one of those clawfoot tubs that looked like it had been installed sometime during the Coolidge administration. I dropped my bag on the bed and walked to the living room window. The ocean, gray and endless and angry. Waves crashed against black rocks and exploded into foam. The sky and water blurred together at the horizon until you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. It was violent and beautiful and completely indifferent to me, and I found that comforting. I stood there for a long time. Then I unpacked, hung my 2 sweaters in the closet, put my toiletries in the bathroom, set the photo album on the nightstand without opening it. By the time I finished, it was almost 10 a.m., and I realized I hadn't eaten anything since the pizza I'd barely touched last night. The Grateful Bread bakery was 3 blocks away, according to the welcome binder the owner had left. I bundled into my raincoat, the same Columbia jacket I'd owned for 15 years, faded and practical, and walked. Cannon Beach in December felt like a town holding its breath. The tourist season was over. The locals had reclaimed their streets. I passed a man walking a golden retriever, both of them soaked and unbothered. A woman smoking on the porch of a bookshop called Printed Matter, watching the rain like it owed her money. Everything moved slower here, or maybe I was just used to the pace of hospitals, where every second mattered and delays killed people. The Grateful Bread was warm and crowded despite the weather. Apparently everyone in town had the same idea. The smell hit me first. Cinnamon rolls, fresh bread, coffee so strong it made my eyes water in the best way. The walls were covered in local art, price tags still attached. A chalkboard above the counter listed the specials in looping handwriting. Clam chowder, turkey cranberry melt, pumpkin bread pudding. I ordered the chowder and a coffee, black, and found a small table near the window. That's when I saw him. He was sitting 2 tables over, reading a paperback with a cracked spine, a bowl of oatmeal cooling in front of him. Maybe 70, maybe older. White hair, neatly trimmed, wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a thick wool sweater that looked hand-knit and a collar, the kind priests wear when they're off duty but still want you to know what they are. He looked up and caught me staring. I flushed and looked away, focusing very intently on my chowder when it arrived. It was good. Potatoes and clams and cream thick enough to coat a spoon. I ate slowly, watching the rain streak the windows, trying not to think about my phone still turned off in my purse, trying not to imagine Jason's texts piling up like accusations. First time in Cannon Beach? I jumped. The priest was standing beside my table, smiling apologetically. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. I'm Tom Callahan. I work at St. Agnes a few blocks from here. Well, volunteer. I'm retired technically, but try telling that to Father Miguel. His voice had the kind of warmth that made you want to trust him immediately, which made me suspicious. Linda, I said carefully. Linda Hargrove. Mind if I sit? All the other tables are full. They weren't. There were at least 3 empty tables, but I nodded anyway because something about him reminded me of David, and I missed David with a sudden fierceness that took my breath away. Tom sat down with his oatmeal and his book. I could see the title now, The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene, and took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. "So," he said, "running away or running toward?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" People who come to Cannon Beach in winter are either running away from something or running toward something. Sometimes both. You have the look of someone running away. "That's presumptuous." "It is. I apologize." He took another bite. "But am I wrong? I wanted to be offended. I wanted to tell him to mind his own business. Instead, I said, 'My son uninvited me from a trip I paid for because I'm too old to party with him.'" Tom nodded like this made perfect sense. "So, you came here." "So I came here. Good choice. Cannon Beach is excellent for spite vacations." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out sharp and surprised, and Tom grinned. "You do this a lot?" I asked. "Interrogate strangers in bakeries?" "Only the interesting ones." "You're interesting. I'm a 58-year-old nurse from Portland whose son thinks she's an embarrassment. Like I said, interesting." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the rain intensified, hammering the sidewalk. "I have a sister," Tom said suddenly. "Had. She died 6 years ago. Cancer. We hadn't spoken in 8 years before that. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was my fault. She wanted me to leave the priesthood after our mother died. Said the church had taken enough from our family. Said I was hiding behind the collar instead of living. I told her she didn't understand my calling. We fought. I left. And then one day I got a call from a hospice nurse in Eugene telling me Margaret had maybe 2 weeks left, and she'd been asking for me." He paused, staring at his oatmeal like it had answers. "Did you go?" I asked quietly. "I did, but I was too late." She'd slipped into a coma the night before. I sat with her for 3 days, holding her hand, telling her all the things I should have said when she could hear them. She died at 4:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. The nurses were very kind. "I'm a nurse," I said. "We try." "I know you do." He looked at me over his glasses. "The point is, I spent 8 years being right instead of being kind, and I'd give anything, to take back that pride and just show up for her. But I can't. So now I volunteer at soup kitchens and sit in bakeries bothering strangers, hoping that somehow balances the scales. Does it? No. But it helps." I didn't know what to say to that. The chowder was getting cold. I took another bite. "Your son," Tom said. "You love him?" "Of course. Then whatever you're doing, this trip, this distance, it comes from love, even if it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices, even if it breaks your heart." "It does," I whispered. "Break my heart." "I know, but you're here. That took courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." He finished his oatmeal, closed his book, and stood up. "I'm at St. Agnes most afternoons if you want to talk more. Or just sit. The church is always open, even if God's not always in." He smiled. "And there's a New Year's Eve service tonight at 10 p.m. Quiet, reflective, good music. You're welcome to come." I don't really do church anymore. Neither do I most days. But sometimes it's nice to sit in a room with people who are also pretending to have it together. And then he was gone, leaving his bowl and his book, and me sitting there with half a bowl of chowder and a strange feeling in my chest that might have been hope or might have been indigestion. I pulled out my phone, turned it on, waited for the texts to load. There were 47 messages. I scrolled through them, my stomach tightening with each one. "Jason. Mom, seriously, we need to talk about this." Jason. "Tyler and Aisha are freaking out about the cabin cost." Jason. "This is ridiculous. Call me back." Jason. "Are you really not going to respond?" Jason. "Fine. Be that way." Megan. "Linda, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we please talk?" Tyler. Unknown number. "Hey, Mrs. Hargrove. Jason said you canceled the cabin? We can't really afford Tahoe without splitting it 4 ways. Is there any way to undo this? Jason. Mom, come on, don't do this. Jason. You're being selfish. Jason. We just wanted one trip without feeling like we had to babysit you. That one stopped me cold. Babysit. Like I was a burden, a chore, an obligation. I set the phone down before I could read the rest. Outside, the rain was turning to sleet. The ocean roared. Someone in the bakery laughed, a bright, untroubled sound. I thought about Tom's sister, about pride and regret and chances you don't get back. Then I thought about Jason's face at dinner, the casual cruelty, the assumption that I'd just absorb it, pay for it, smile and nod and disappear when convenient. I picked up my phone again and typed, I'm spending New Year's at the coast. I hope you figure out Tahoe. I love you. I hit send before I could overthink it. Then I turned the phone off again, finished my chowder, and walked back to the lighthouse cottage through the sleet, feeling lighter than I had in years. That night, I built a fire, opened a bottle of wine I'd found in the kitchen, a Pinot Noir from a local vineyard, left by the owner as a welcome gift, sat in the rocking chair on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching the lighthouse beam sweep across the water in steady, reliable intervals. At 9:47 p.m., I walked to St. Agnes. The church was small and plain, built from the same weathered wood as everything else in Cannon Beach. Inside, maybe 20 people sat scattered in pews, their faces soft in candlelight. Tom was at the front, lighting votives, his sweater replaced by vestments that looked too big for him. I slid into a back pew and let the silence settle over me. The service was simple, prayers, a hymn I half remembered from childhood, a homily about new beginnings and the grace of starting over. At midnight, we all said the same thing. May this year be kinder than the last. And I believed it. I believed it so hard I almost cried. When I got back to the cottage, I finally opened the photo album. David and me on our wedding day. Both of us so young and stupid and sure we'd figured it out. Jason as a baby, toothless and perfect. Jason at 5, missing his front tooth, grinning at Disneyland. Jason at 12, sullen and braced, already pulling away. Jason at 22, graduating college, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering, I couldn't have done this without you, Mom. When had that changed? When had I stopped being someone he needed and started being someone he tolerated? I closed the album and climbed into bed, listening to the ocean, waiting for sleep. It didn't come for a long time, but when it did, I dreamed of lighthouses and storms and finding my way home in the dark. I woke up to my phone screaming, not buzzing, not chirping, screaming, that shrill, panic-inducing ringtone I'd set for emergencies only, the one that meant hospital or police or something irrevocably wrong. The clock on the nightstand read 3:47 a.m. January 2nd. I'd been asleep for maybe 4 hours, deep and dreamless, in a way I hadn't managed since David died. I grabbed the phone, heart already hammering, and saw the name, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. Hello. My voice came out rough, unfamiliar. Is this Linda Hargrove? Yes. What's wrong? Ma'am, this is Deputy Chen with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. Do you have a son named Jason David Hargrove? The room tilted. I sat up too fast, and the blood rushed from my head. Yes. What happened? Is he hurt? We're not sure, ma'am. His vehicle was found abandoned on Highway 26 near milepost 43, approximately 6 hours ago. The driver's door was open, keys in the ignition, engine still running. His wallet and phone were inside. I couldn't breathe. What do you mean abandoned? There's no sign of your son. Search and rescue has been called. We're trying to piece together his movements. The vehicle was registered to a Megan Feldman. Is that someone you know? His girlfriend. Where is she? We haven't been able to reach her yet. You're listed as Mr. Hargrove's emergency contact. When did you last speak with him? Highway 26, the same highway I'd driven 2 days ago. Milepost 43 would be somewhere in the mountains, where the road got narrow and the drop-offs were steep, and the trees grew so thick they blocked out the sky. Mrs. Hargrove? December 30th. We had dinner. In Portland. And you haven't heard from him since? I thought about the 47 texts I'd ignored, the phone I'd turned off, the message I'd sent and never followed up on. No, I whispered. I haven't. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come back to Portland. We have some questions, and we'll need help identifying any locations he might have gone. Can you do that? I'm in Cannon Beach. How soon can you leave? I looked at the window. Still dark. Rain hammering the glass. 45 minutes. Drive carefully. The roads are bad. Come to the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office on S.E. Stark. Ask for me. Deputy Chen. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, my hands shaking so badly, I nearly dropped it. Jason was missing. My son was missing, and I'd turned off my phone. I'd ignored him. I'd been so focused on my own hurt feelings that I hadn't... No. Stop. I forced myself to breathe, to think like a nurse. Assess, prioritize, act. I threw on clothes, jeans, sweater, the same jacket I'd worn yesterday. Grabbed my keys, my purse, my phone charger, left everything else. The cottage suddenly felt like a crime scene, like evidence of my selfishness. The drive back was a nightmare. It was still dark, still raining, and now I was driving towards something instead of away from it, and that made every mile feel twice as long. I kept the radio off because I couldn't stand the sound of other people's voices. My mind was a loop of worst-case scenarios. Jason hurt, Jason dead, Jason lying in a ditch somewhere, while I'd been sitting in a church lighting candles and feeling sorry for myself. Milepost 43 came up at 4:52 a.m. I slowed down without meaning to, scanning the shoulder for any sign of... what? Police tape? Searchlights? Jason's body? There was nothing. Just darkness and trees and rain. I kept driving. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office was a low brick building that looked like every government building everywhere. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of burnt coffee, and institutional despair. Deputy Chen met me at the front desk. He was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and the careful manner of someone who delivered bad news for a living. Mrs. Hargrove, thank you for coming so quickly. Have you found him? Not yet. Search and rescue is out there now, but visibility is poor and the terrain is difficult. We're doing everything we can. He led me to a small conference room with a table, 4 chairs, and a whiteboard covered in timeline notes I couldn't bring myself to read yet. Can you walk me through the last time you saw Jason? So I did. I told him about the dinner at Escape from New York Pizza, about Jason uninviting me from Tahoe, about me canceling the trip. I didn't mention how it felt or what it meant, just the facts, clean and clinical, the way you report a patient's condition to the attending physician. Deputy Chen wrote everything down in a notebook, nodding occasionally. And you said you haven't spoken to him since December 30th. I sent him a text on the 31st, telling him I was at the coast. Did he respond? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and scrolled through the messages I'd been avoiding. Jason. Mom, seriously, we need to talk about this. Jason. Tyler and Aisha are freaking out about the cabin cost. Jason. This is ridiculous. Call me back. Jason. Are you really not going to respond? Jason. Fine, be that way. Jason. We just wanted one trip without feeling like we had to babysit you. Jason. You're being selfish. Jason. Mom, please. I'm sorry, can we just talk? That one was from 11:43 p.m. on New Year's Eve, 2 hours before midnight, while I'd been at St. Agnes lighting candles and praying for a kinder year. Jason, I'm coming to find you. We need to fix this. That was from 2:17 a.m. on January 1st, and then nothing. I showed Deputy Chen the phone, my vision blurring. He was coming to find me, I said. He was driving to Cannon Beach and something happened. We don't know that yet, Mrs. Hargrove. His car was found on Highway 26. That's the route to the coast. He was coming for me. And I didn't know because my phone was off because I was being petty and stupid and... Linda, Deputy Chen's voice was firm. You can't think like that. Whatever happened out there, it's not your fault. But it was. Of course it was. If I'd answered his texts, if I'd called him back, if I'd swallowed my pride and my hurt and just talked to him like an adult instead of running away, he wouldn't have been on that highway in the middle of the night, in the rain. We've been trying to reach Megan Feldman, Deputy Chen continued. Do you know where she might be? No. They live together in the Pearl District, I think. An apartment on 11th. We sent a unit there. No one answered. That was strange. Megan was always on her phone, always reachable, always plugged into the grid of modern life. What about his friends? Tyler and Aisha? We're tracking them down now. A knock on the door. Another deputy stuck his head in, younger than Chen, with the kind of mustache that suggested he was trying very hard to be taken seriously. We found something. Chen stood up. Excuse me a moment. He stepped into the hallway. I sat there alone in the conference room, staring at the whiteboard, at the timeline of my son's disappearance written in dry erase marker, like it was just another case, just another set of data points. December 30th, 7 Noir p.m. Last confirmed sighting. Dinner with mother. December 31st, 11:43 p.m. Last text message to mother. January 1st, 2:17 a.m. Text message indicating travel plans. January 1st, 9:34 p.m. Vehicle found abandoned. Highway 26. Milepost 43. 15 hours between his last text and his car being found. 15 hours of... what? Driving? Stopping? Something else? Deputy Chen came back in, his face carefully neutral in a way that made my stomach drop. What did you find? Mrs. Hargrove, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. How was Jason's mental state recently? Had he seemed depressed? Anxious? Was he struggling with anything you know of? My mouth went dry. What are you saying? I'm not saying anything yet. I'm just asking. Jason was fine. He had a good job, a girlfriend, friends. He was happy. Was he using any substances? Alcohol? Drugs? He drank sometimes, socially. Nothing. Why are you asking me this? Deputy Chen sat down across from me and folded his hands on the table in that same way Jason had 2 nights ago, and I hated him for it. We found Jason's phone in the car. The last thing he searched before getting out was directions to a hiking trail, Angel's Rest Trail, specifically. It's about half a mile from where his car was found. Angel's Rest. I knew that trail. David and I had hiked it once, years ago, before Jason was born. It was beautiful. Steep switchbacks through dense forest, ending at a viewpoint that overlooked the Columbia River Gorge. It was also dangerous. Sheer drop-offs, loose rock, no guardrails. You think he went hiking? At 2 a.m. in the rain? We don't know. But search and rescue is focusing on that area now. Why would he go there? That doesn't make any sense. Mrs. Hargrove, in cases like this, we have to consider all possibilities, including the possibility that... No. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. No. Jason wouldn't. He's not... He was coming to find me, to apologize. He was upset maybe, but not that. I understand this is difficult. You don't understand anything. My son is out there somewhere, lost or hurt or scared, and you're sitting here implying he... No, absolutely not. But even as I said it, I thought about Jason's texts, the desperation in them, the apology. I'm coming to find you. We need to fix this. What if he'd been drinking? What if the fight had hit him harder than I'd realized? What if, in his guilt and his panic to make things right, he'd done something reckless? I sat back down slowly. Tell me about the trail, I said quietly. Deputy Chen pulled out a map and spread it across the table. Angel's Rest is a 8-mile round trip. Elevation gain of about 1,500 feet. The trailhead is here." He pointed. "Jason's car was found here. That's about a quarter-mile difference." So he parked and walked to the trailhead. Possibly. Or he got disoriented. The rain was heavy that night. Visibility was near zero. Have you found any sign of him on the trail? Search and rescue has been out there since first light. So far, nothing. But it's slow going. The conditions are rough. I stared at the map, at the topographic lines showing elevation, at the small triangle marking the summit viewpoint with its 1,500-foot drop. I want to go out there. "Mrs. Hargrove, that's not a good idea. The trail is closed right now for the search." "I don't care. He's my son. If he's out there, I need to look." "You could interfere with the search, and frankly, the conditions are dangerous, even for trained personnel." "I'm going." I stood up again, this time with my keys in my hand. "You can arrest me, or you can let me help, but I'm going." Deputy Chen studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Let me make a call." By 7:30 a.m., I was standing at the Angel's Rest trailhead, wearing a borrowed rain jacket and an expression of determination that masked pure terror. Search and Rescue had set up a command post in the parking lot, a trailer with generators and communications equipment and people with clipboards coordinating search grids. A woman named Sarah, maybe 45, with the kind of competence that came from doing this too many times, handed me a radio and a whistle. "You stay with me," she said firmly. "You do exactly what I say. If I tell you to stop, you stop. If I tell you to turn back, you turn back. Clear?" "Clear. We've searched the main trail twice already. No sign of him. But there are side paths, unofficial trails that branch off. We're checking those now." We started walking. The forest was dark and dripping, the ground slick with mud and pine needles. Every 20 feet or so, Sarah would call out, "Jason! Jason Hargrove!" Her voice would echo through the trees and then die, swallowed by the rain and the vastness. I tried not to think about all the ways this could end badly. We hiked for an hour, climbing steadily, my thighs burning from the grade. Sarah was tireless, methodical, checking every fork in the path, every gap in the underbrush. Other search teams moved parallel to us. I could hear them calling, their voices faint and ghostly. At 8:47 a.m., Sarah's radio crackled. "Team 3 to command. We've got something. Northwest quadrant, about 50 yards off the main trail. Looks like disturbed earth and broken branches. Requesting additional personnel." Sarah grabbed my arm before I could bolt. "Stay with me." We moved toward the coordinates, faster now, pushing through salal and Oregon grape that tore at our jackets. The rain was getting heavier. My lungs burned. Then I saw them. 3 other searchers standing in a small clearing, their faces grim, staring at something on the ground. Not a body, a backpack, navy blue, mud-stained, half buried in leaves. Sarah picked it up carefully, unzipped it, and pulled out a wallet. She checked the driver's license and looked at me. "This is Jason's." The world tilted. "Where is he?" My voice didn't sound like mine. "If his pack is here, where is he?" "We don't know, but we're close. Everyone, fan out. Expand the search radius. Check for any tracks, any signs of passage." I stood there holding Jason's wallet, his driver's license photo staring up at me, his 28-year-old face smiling in that stiff DMV way, and felt something inside me crack. Please, I thought, to God or the universe or whoever was listening, please don't let me lose him. I'll do anything. I'll be better. I'll call every day. I'll never ask him for anything. Just, please, please let him be alive. Mrs. Hargrove. I looked up. One of the searchers was standing at the edge of the clearing, pointing down a steep slope that disappeared into mist. There are tracks, leading down. Sarah was beside me instantly. How steep? Very. Looks like maybe 30 degrees. Could be a slide zone. Get ropes. We're going down. It took 20 minutes to set up the rappelling equipment. 20 minutes of standing there, Jason's wallet burning a hole in my pocket, imagining him sliding down that slope in the dark, hitting a tree, breaking something, lying there unable to move while I slept peacefully in a lighthouse cottage. Finally, Sarah clipped into the rope and looked at me. You can wait here. No. Linda. No. She studied my face, then nodded. Clip in behind me. Keep tension on the rope. Don't look down. We descended into the fog. The slope was worse than it looked. Slick with mud, studded with roots that grabbed at your feet. Every step felt like falling in slow motion. Sarah called out as we went. Jason! Can you hear me? Nothing. Just rain and the creak of rope and my own breathing, too loud in my ears. We'd gone maybe 40 feet when Sarah stopped abruptly. There. I looked. At the base of a massive Douglas fir, half hidden by ferns, was a shape that didn't belong to the forest. A person, lying motionless, face down, wearing Jason's jacket. Jason! I screamed and tried to rush forward, but Sarah grabbed me. Wait, let me check first. She moved down carefully, knelt beside the figure, pressed 2 fingers to the neck. Then she looked up at me, and I couldn't read her expression. He's alive. Pulse is weak but steady. He's hypothermic. We need a litter, and we need it now. She was already on the radio, calling for backup, for medical, for extraction. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was sliding down the rest of the slope, rope forgotten, falling to my knees beside my son. Jason's face was gray, his lips blue. His eyes were closed. Blood had dried on his forehead from a gash above his eyebrow. His right leg was bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. Jason, honey, it's Mom. I'm here. You're going to be okay. His eyes fluttered but didn't open. I pulled off my jacket and draped it over him, then lay down beside him in the mud, pressing my body against his to share whatever warmth I had left. Don't you dare, I whispered. Don't you dare leave me. We have too much to fix. You hear me? We're going to fix this. His lips moved, barely. Mom, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I'm sorry. And then he was unconscious again, and I was holding him, while Sarah coordinated the rescue above us, and the rain fell and fell and fell. It took 45 minutes to get Jason up that slope. The search and rescue team was efficient and professional, but every second felt like an hour. They stabilized his leg, wrapped him in thermal blankets, strapped him into a litter, and hauled him up inch by inch while I climbed behind them, my hands bleeding from gripping the rope too tight. The ambulance was waiting at the trailhead. I rode with him, holding his hand while the paramedics worked. IV lines, oxygen, blood pressure cuff. One of them, a young guy with a tattoo of a cross on his wrist, met my eyes. You his mother? Yes. You saved his life. Another few hours out there and he wouldn't have made it. I didn't feel like I'd saved anything. I felt like I'd almost lost everything. At the hospital, Providence, Portland, the same one where I worked, the same ICU where I'd spent 15 years taking care of other people's children. They rushed Jason into surgery to repair his fractured tibia and clean the head wound. I sat in the waiting room in my muddy clothes, Jason's wallet still in my pocket, and called Megan. She answered on the first ring. Linda? Oh my God, is he... He's alive. He's in surgery. Where are you? I'm in Seattle, at my parents'. Jason and I had a fight after you canceled the trip and I needed space. I turned off my phone. I didn't know he... Her voice broke. Is he going to be okay? I don't know yet. I'm coming back. I'll be there in 3 hours. She hung up. I sat there alone, surrounded by families waiting for news about their own loved ones, and let myself finally fall apart. I cried for Jason. For the years of distance between us. For all the things we'd said and hadn't said. I cried for David, gone 3 years, but still so present in every choice I made. I cried for myself. For the woman I'd been trying so hard to please everyone that I'd forgotten how to exist. And I cried because my son had almost died trying to apologize to me, and I'd been too proud to pick up the phone. At 2:37 p.m., a surgeon came out, still in her scrubs. "Mrs. Hargrove? Jason's out of surgery. The leg repair went well. No internal bleeding. The head injury was superficial. He has moderate hypothermia, but we're warming him gradually. He's going to make a full recovery." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. "He's asking for you." They let me into the ICU. My ICU. The same one where I'd worked 1,000 shifts. Denise was on duty and grabbed me in a hug that nearly broke me. "Linda. Jesus, we heard. How are you holding up?" "I don't know." "Go. Bay 7. He's awake." Jason was propped up in bed, looking small and young and scared, in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. His leg was in a cast, his head bandaged, monitors beeping a steady rhythm beside him. He saw me and started crying. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I pulled a chair up beside his bed and took his hand. "Shh, don't. Just rest. No, you don't understand. I was horrible to you. At dinner, the things I said. And then you left, and I realized how badly I'd screwed up, and I had to find you. I had to tell you I didn't mean it. Jason, I got drunk. On New Year's. Megan and I fought because she said I was acting like a child. And she was right. And I kept thinking about you, alone at the coast, and it was my fault. And I got in the car and I just drove. I wasn't thinking, I just wanted to fix it. And then it was raining so hard and I couldn't see. And I thought maybe, if I stopped, got out, cleared my head at that trail you and Dad used to talk about." He stopped, his voice breaking. "I slipped, on the trail, fell down the slope and hit my head and my leg I couldn't move, Mom. I tried to climb back up, but I couldn't. I kept calling for help, but no one could hear me. It was so cold, and I thought, this is it. I'm going to die out here." And the last thing I said to my mother was that she was too old to party with me. I squeezed his hand. "You're not going to die. You're here. You're safe." "I don't deserve safe. I don't deserve you." "Jason, listen to me." I leaned forward until he met my eyes. "What you said at dinner hurt. It hurt more than I can tell you. But you're my son. I love you. That doesn't just stop because we fight. But You were cruel and selfish, and you took me for granted. And we're going to have to talk about that. Really talk. When you're better. But right now, I'm just grateful you're alive." He closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know, honey. I know." I sat with him until visiting hours ended, until the nurses gently kicked me out, until he was asleep and stable and safe. Then I went home to my empty apartment, peeled off my muddy clothes, and stood in the shower until the hot water ran out. And in the darkness of my bedroom, lying in David's old t-shirt that still smelled faintly like him, I thought about lighthouses and storms and the difference between loving someone and letting them destroy you. Tomorrow I'd go back to the hospital. Tomorrow Jason and I would start the hard work of rebuilding what we'd broken. But tonight, I let myself rest because I'd earned it, because I'd found him, because we were both, miraculously, still here. On New Year's Eve, stay home. We don't want old people at the party. They ruin the vibe, my son said the day before the flight for the trip. I replied, "All right, I'll cancel my ticket and the accommodation. The young ones can pay for everything themselves," leaving him in shock.